Welcome back to Football Daily, where this week we are looking at 10 Premier League panic buys of the last few seasons. Let's get into it. 10. Kepa Arrizabalaga. Sometimes a club can be so desperate to fill a hole in their squad, they will pay silly money to do it. And that is exactly what happened when Chelsea announced the arrival of Kepa Arrizabalaga for a massive £72 million in the summer of 2018. The move made the Athletic Bilbao shot-stopper the most expensive keeper in history, and Chelsea's record signing. The Blues went in for Kepa after watching Real Madrid poach Thibaut Courtois from them for £30 million in the same summer. But while Courtois was widely considered one of the best in the world, the Spaniard was more of an unknown prospect. Coming through the Basque club's youth academy, he had only made 53 La Liga appearances by the time of his move. He did rank second for saves per match in La Liga at the time of signing, but that still didn't appear to justify Chelsea agreeing to value him higher than Liverpool's Alisson. His monster contract at Bilbao, which was due to run till 2025, and his tender age of just 23 likely played into his price tag. Though for a club who have been so shrewd in the market under the guidance of Marina Granovskia, it seems like a bizarre move. Kepa is by no means a bad keeper, and even pushing De Gea for a starting spot in the Spain squad. But that doesn't escape the fact Chelsea panicked in their pursuit for a replacement for Courtois. Just before we move on to number 9, if you guys are not already subscribed to Football Daily, make sure you are by hitting that big red button, and hit the notification bell as well so you never miss a video. 9. Fulham 2018-19. The newfound riches of the Premier League can be both a blessing and a curse, as Fulham discovered having seized promotion back to the big time for the 2018-19 season. Desperate to make an impression, they embarked on an elaborate spending spree that saw them splash an outrageous £105 million on 13 players. In Fulham's defence, they were promoted with a very bare squad due to the fact many of their first team players in 2017-18 were there on loan. However, that doesn't excuse the ridiculous fees that were paid out for mediocre European talent. Jean-Michel Seri and Andre Zambo and Gisa arrived on huge deals, while Luciano Vietto and Andre Schürrle did little to impress. But the most confusing aspect of the Cottagers' transfer policy was the arrival of two keepers in Fabri, a £5 million addition from Besiktas, and Sergio Rico from Sevilla. Fabri made a grand total of 2 appearances. Various regulars from their successful championship campaign, such as keeper Marcus Bettinelli, were marginalised from the squad in place of the new expensive imports. Sure enough, 2 managers would come and go before Scott Parker oversaw their eventual relegation. Fulham's ill-fated year in the Premiership goes to show that a bad, panic transfer policy can be hugely costly for any club. 8. Joelinton. When Rafa Benitez left Newcastle at the end of last season, he cited the club's board and lack of investment as the reasons behind his departure. And when Steve Bruce stepped in to fill his place, it appeared the Spaniard's criticisms were justified. During Benitez's time in Northumberland, Newcastle chairman Mike Ashley actually spent less on transfers than he took, with the £21.6 million arrival of Miguel Almiron constituting their marquee signing. So many eyebrows were raised when the club announced that Hoffenheim striker Joelinton was joining for just shy of £40 million last summer. While on the surface it seemed like an exciting move, the Brazilian had only scored 11 in all competitions the season before, and posted a modest goal return during earlier loan spells at Rapid Vienna. If Joelinton was meant to be an attempt by Ashley to silence his numerous doubters, then it hasn't worked. Despite his high price tag, Joelinton has been fairly shocking so far. Scoring the winner away to Tottenham doesn't overlook his terrible rate of 1.8 shots per 90, and he hasn't been without his chances, having played over 1,600 minutes at the time of writing. At 23, the Brazilian does have many years ahead of him, but it doesn't escape the fact he appears to be a rushed and wasted attempt to show ambition by the Newcastle board. 7. Cenk Tosun. Everton never really recovered from the sale of Romelu Lukaku to Manchester United in 2017. The big Belgian had been prolific for the Toffees, scoring 87 times in his 4 seasons at the club. Just a few months after his departure, Ronald Koeman was sacked before Sam Allardyce was brought in to grind out Premier League survival. And the English boss's answer to Everton's goal drought was to sign Turkish striker Cenk Tosun in the January window. Playing for Besiktas, Tosun was a tour de force. In 2016-17, he scored 20 Super League goals for the Black Eagles, and by the time he joined Everton for £20 million, he had already found the net 14 times in all competitions. But while he was prolific in Turkey, the Premier League is a whole new level of competition, and it wasn't long before the 28-year-old inevitably struggled. His recent move to Crystal Palace ended a dismal spell that produced just 10 goals in all competitions. He simply was unable to enjoy the same freedom in England that he experienced in Turkey, as demonstrated by his shots per 90 falling from 3.2 to 1.5 in his first season. Tosun is evidence that sometimes you need a proven goalscorer from a top league rather than rushing into a speculative transfer from a lower division. 6. Rachid Ghezzal. Riyad Mahrez was always going to leave the Foxes, and the move was confirmed in the summer of 2018 when Manchester City coughed up the £60 million asking price. The winger had been exceptional for Leicester, especially in their 2015-16 title-winning season, when he scored 17 and assisted 11. So whoever was going to take his place was going to face a huge task. That responsibility fell, ironically, to fellow Algerian Rachid Ghezzal. Signed from Monaco for £12.6 million, he arrived in England having only mustered up 5 goal involvements in Ligue 1 the season before. But any hope they had unearthed another gem was quickly dispelled as the season progressed. The winger scored just 1 goal with no assists, registering just 1 shot and 0.8 key passes per 90, nowhere near the quality of Riyad Mahrez. It was no surprise then to see the winger sent to Fiorentina on loan this summer. Luckily for Leicester, they also signed Monaco's Yuri Tielemans, who has gone on to be a huge success for the club. But if it weren't for the Belgian, Brendan Rodgers' side may still be struggling to replace the huge hole left by Mahrez. 5. André Ayew. The January transfer window mixed with an impending relegation scrap is the perfect recipe for a panic buy, as André Ayew's move to Swansea City in the winter of 2018 demonstrates. After peaking in 2015 with an 8th placed finish in the Premier League, the Welsh side had fallen into a steady decline that saw numerous managers come and go and their position in the league suffer. By January 2017, and with Paul Clement being the latest manager to fall, the struggling club decided to splash a huge £20.5 million on West Ham forward André Ayew. History would suggest it was an intelligent transfer, with the Ghanaian having scored 12 times for the Swans in the 2015-16 season. And with his brother Jordan at the club, a happy reunion looked on the cards. But in his 2 seasons away from Wales, Ayew had declined. While at West Ham, he had scored just 9 times and often found himself pushed to the bench. By the time he returned to Swansea, he was a much different player to the one they originally sold. Unsurprisingly, he was powerless to prevent their relegation that season, failing to find the score sheet once. After an unproductive season away at Fenerbahce, he is back in Wales this year, the final relic of their fall from grace. 4. Badou Ndiaye. Another player who defines the mould of a relegation scrap panic buy is Stoke City midfielder Badou Ndiaye. Having established themselves as Premier League regulars under Tony Pulis and Mark Hughes, things started to go horribly wrong in the 2016-17 season. By mid-January, Hughes was gone, and Paul Lambert was brought in as Stoke languished in the relegation zone on 20 points. The board clearly decided their team was lacking stability in the centre of midfield, having seen £18 million club record signing Mbula perform disastrously since arriving from Porto. So they decided to try again in the market, hastily forking out over £14 million for Senegalese midfielder Badou Ndiaye from Galatasaray. He made his debut in a dire 0-0 draw with Watford, which would set a precedent for his time at the club. Despite scoring twice in the remainder of the season, 1.8 fouls per 90 and 5 yellow cards in 13 matches was the ill discipline the club just didn't need as they slipped closer to the abyss. His 26 average passes per 90 was his lowest return as a playing professional, as he struggled to make an impact. Stoke ended up relegated, and Ndiaye has only made 14 appearances for the club since. If he wasn't up for the fight in the Premiership, he certainly won't be up for a scrap in the Championship. 3. Denis Suárez. In 2018, during Unai Emery's first summer at Arsenal, the club decided to back him by spending £72 million in the market on the likes of Guendouzi, Torreira and Socrates. The only issue was while money was going out, the only notable incomings was the sale of Lucas Perez to West Ham for a paltry £4 million. With no Champions League money either, what followed were horrific headlines of lack of funds with no ability to move in future markets. But by January, Arsenal fans were clamouring for another signing to help boost their European prospects. So on deadline day, the board rushed through the loan signing of the young but talented Barcelona reject, Denis Suárez. Suárez had seen his career stall at the Camp Nou, having only made 8 appearances for the Blaugrana that season by the time of signing. But it always seemed an odd addition, with Arsenal flush with midfield talent in the likes of Ozil, Ramsey, Iwobi and Mkhitaryan. What followed was a terrible 6 months for the Spaniard that saw him play just 95 minutes of football. Ironically for Arsenal, it proved to be a hugely expensive loan deal, paying an initial £2.2 million for 6 months, plus his £55,000 a week wages. The youngster would ultimately cost the Gunners £26,000 for every minute he appeared on the pitch. 2. Fred. By the end of the 2017-18 season, Manchester United looked like a force again, having finished second under the guidance of Jose Mourinho. But as is the way with the special one, things were not all they seemed. Unsatisfied with the squad, he quickly outlined a number of positions that needed strengthening. But as the summer progressed, only young Diogo Dalot and third keeper Lee Grant arrived. Fred, a star in the Ukrainian league for Shakhtar Donetsk, was just one of the midfield options they were interested in, though according to The Athletic, Mourinho wasn't particularly keen. He would only agree to the transfer after United missed their other targets, and the board gave him no choice, causing a further rift at the club. They spent a whopping £53 million on the Brazilian, and ultimately failed to sign a centre-back, which was Mourinho's real desire. While Willian is testament to the quality that can emerge from the Ukrainian league, Fred has been frankly terrible. He hardly appeared during Mourinho's remaining period in charge, and only makes the team now due to the sheer number of injuries affecting United's midfield. Predominantly a holding player, he makes more fouls than he does interceptions, while he is dribbled past 3.1 times a game. And with just 1 league goal to his name so far, he is no attacking threat either. The whole transfer shows that sometimes it's better to not buy anyone at all than rush into wasting huge sums of money on a player for the sake of bringing someone in. 1. Alexis Sánchez. Alexis Sanchez's move to Manchester United in January 2018 is easily one of the worst in Premier League history. The prolific Arsenal forward was always going to leave the Gunners, and Manchester City looked to add the Chilean talent to a forward line already featuring Aguero, Sane and Sterling. With Guardiola having already coached Sanchez to La Liga success in 2013 with Barcelona, it seemed like the perfect match. Paralysed by the fear a move to Manchester City would further strengthen their rivals, Manchester United entered the market for Sanchez with a truly outrageous offer. The resulting deal saw Henrik Mkhitaryan head to London, and United agreed to pay Sanchez a huge £350,000 a week, making him the biggest earner in the Premier League. It was a wage City were not interested in matching. 18 months later, instead of proving that United are still top dogs when it comes to attracting players, the transfer has been widely panned. Sanchez netted just 3 times in 32 league matches, while his shots per game numbers plummeted. And his huge wage caused massive risks with other high earners at the clubs, who all demanded higher pay. Destabilising and disastrous, the move is one of the worst panic buys yet. So those were our 10 worst panic buys in the Premier League of recent seasons, but have we missed anyone else out? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please click on screen right now for more, and as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.